So Seth Godin once wrote that you need to be famous to the small circle of people you're hoping will admire and trust you. Being famous to the family is far more efficient than being famous to everyone, he said. Trust needs touch. Large audiences are actually inefficient for deepening relationships. One of the things that Godin later added was, it takes focus, though. And he's right. That's the hard part, isn't it? There's so much pressure these days to impress people we don't know, that we don't care about, and that we'll never do business with, that it's easy to forget about all of the people we do care about and can actually do business with. So with that in mind, I want to build a marketing plan together today. Now, for context, I've never built a business plan. I don't know how. It always seemed like the type of overcomplicated thing people spend a lot of time on one time and then never look at again. All that I ever needed was something quick to give me direction and refocus me when I fell off track. Despite all of the incredible advances in technology, the best marketing to humans by humans can be summed up in 3 words. Talk to people. Now, which people? Your people. What do you say? Not much. You mostly listen. Where do you find them? Wherever they already are. Guys, I got good news. Today we are revisiting the human optimized marketing system, or when?
Ham.
Nice.
HOMS. No, ham is human avoidance marketing, Amber.
Hums.
Oh.
HOMS.
I like ham.
HOMS. Say it with me. Say it with me. HOMS. HOMS has 5 steps. Number 1 is, what key benefit does my thing provide? Number 2, who are my customers? Number 3, what do they want? Number 4, where am I going to find them? And number 5, how can I talk to them today? So while a business plan sits in a drawer collecting dust, HOMS fits on a Post-it note. I want to tell you about a friend of mine. His name is Rahul Gopal. He believes that every child has the ability to learn. Tutoring's mostly a side hustle industry. By the way, in advance, I'm going to tell you guys that I'm going to butcher every single name in this episode, and I'm just apologizing for that. There's a bunch of French names, and I'm going to just butcher those, so prepare for that.
All I heard was RuPaul, and so now I'm imagining RuPaul teaching kids.
Well, his name's Rahul.
I know, but I heard...
But
Work,
we can call him
honey.
RuPaul.
Do that math, honey. Work, child. Work, honey.
For the record, that would so work for me.
So tutoring's mostly a side hustle industry, right? There's no regulation, there's no designation, and as a result, some tutors like Rahul are very serious, but the majority of them aren't. Once people hire his company, assuming they've hired tutors in the past, they'll notice the difference, but that only happens after he gets hired. Canvassing schools, paid ads, buying booths at street festivals every weekend, they're common marketing methods, but there's actually a better way. So here's Rahul's human optimized marketing system, or Ren. So number 1, what key benefit does his product or service provide? Customized educational support. Number 2, who are his customers? Their wealthy parents. Number 3, what do they want? They want individualized attention and a better future for their child. Number 4, where is he going to find them? The answer is at charity galas. And number 5, how can he talk to them today? By buying a ticket and attending. Wealthy people have kids. They desperately want to excel in school. For the affluent, money isn't a concern. Time is. Charity galas are rare events where the affluent are accessible. Rahul's the only tutor investing his marketing budget on attending these things, though. All it takes is a quick handshake and a what do you do for work chat for Rahul to say that he helps kids build confidence through learning when they're young and prepares high school kids to get into the best colleges. Phone numbers are exchanged, referrals are made. There is luck involved. Not every event works. But affluent communities are well connected. Once you're in, you're in. When you work backwards and get yourself into the right rooms, good things will reliably happen. Have you ever wondered how things like large-scale government-sponsored tutoring contracts get handed out? Because there isn't exactly a number that you can call and say, hi, I'd like to speak to the government. Hi, yes, Good to meet you, Mrs. G. So I tutor kids, and I think you should create an inner city program that doesn't exist yet. Yeah, you will? Great. Okay, so I'd like the contract. I don't think it works that way. Raoul met the mayor of Toronto one night at a charity function that cost $2,500 a plate. The mayor needed a tutor for his niece. He trusted Raoul because of their shared connection to the charity. Now, unbeknownst to Raoul, an inner city tutoring project was about to be funded, and he got asked to bid on the contract. $2,500 might seem like a lot of money to spend on one evening, but compare the impact of it spent this way with things like paid advertisements to cold traffic that's going to require a dialed-in sales process, or hours and money creating content, or paying for booths at street festivals and spending every single weekend in the summer begging passerbys to talk. In every single case, it must feel random when a rule gets referred. Somebody he'd be seated at a table with for a fundraiser just happened to have had dinner with their rich CEO friend the week before, who was lamenting that their kid was struggling in school. But that's how this stuff happens. That's how this stuff always happens. Raoul doesn't appear on TV whenever local news outlets need an educational expert. He's definitely not famous on the internet. Instead, he's famous to the family. He's the obvious choice for education support amongst affluent parents in Toronto. Next, I want to talk to you about exactly what I would do if I was starting a new business today. We'll get to that in a second. Anything you guys want to add to the tutoring story?
I was just talking to a student of ours about this the other day. He's like, I am so burnt out on social media. I hate it. I was like, then why?
Don't do
Why
it.
are you torturing yourself?
Don't do it.
Exactly. And
Because
like,
if you
I just don't
hate
have
it,
time.
Yeah.
Well, that was his thought process, is he didn't have time to do anything but social media. So he's a dad. And I was like, you take your kids to classes, and who's there but other parents? Who's your target market? Parents. Like, funny how that works. Like, go talk to people. And so we just had an in-depth conversation about that exact thing. Is just taking advantage of where you are naturally likely to meet them.
So we're gonna have a conversation in a few weeks that's going to be called "Social Media is Not Enough," and it's interesting because I do talk about how to use social media in there, but also obviously you don't have to use it. And I think the part that people miss a lot of the time is that if you say that you hate it, you're going to do a shit job at it.
Right. And
if you do a shit job at anything, people feel that, and you're not going to get any benefits from it. So, and I would never say that it doesn't work. Obviously, social media can work, but it's not the only way, and it's never enough. Mm-hmm. It is an amplifier for stuff you do in the real world. But if you hate it, right, you're going to do a shit job at it, right? And it doesn't matter what it is. This is not just a conversation about social media. This is a conversation about literally anything. If you come out and you're like, I hate what I'm doing, I hate the people around, well, you're probably not going to be particularly engaging. You're not going to come at the thing with a good energy. You're not going to be researching it and thinking about it and wanting to do it in your spare time, which is necessary when you're doing something that you need to compete with the world at. So don't fucking do it. Figure out another way. People built businesses before social media existed.
I was there.
People continue to build businesses without social media.
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Yeah. I mean, just because it's present and in your face because of the communities that you exist within, that I'm a part of as well, it doesn't mean that it's all that's out there. It's an echo chamber. That's sure.
I think when people complain about social media and follow up by saying, I don't have time for it, blah, 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 I think what they're really saying is I I don't have another strategy that aligns with the immediacy that I like to derive from this methodology. That's what they're saying. I don't know the way. I don't know another way to shortcut it. Is what they're saying. Because you get on some
Right.
podcasts, you can go into your communities. Like there's a lot of things social media provides. It's like a mirage of immediacy. Like you see it and you feel like there's water there. You get there and you realize you got to dig for the water. Like so, it almost is an immediate methodology, but it's not
Right.
really. But it
Right.
provides the best illusion of immediacy, I think.
Do you think it would be interesting for me to actually share how I'm going to be marketing this book? I have about a year from today until this book comes out into the world. It's due to come out January 2025, and I'm fairly certain that I'm going to hit my deadline. I'm feeling confident, which for anybody who's ever written a book, for the author to say that they're feeling confident means that they've had at least 3 mental breakdowns in the process and they've come out on the other end of it. So pretty happy about that. But my process for marketing the book really is defined by one line, which is catch people in the act of doing something good and become their biggest fan. But I'm using social media a lot of that. I'm following their newsletters. But at the same time, what I'm doing is being very strategic in the types of people that I'm reaching out to based off of the markets that are the types of markets who I think the book could help, but also that I embody, that are the right types of people for me. And with, I think, a little bit of proactive work, I'm going to be able to show up on social media for 15 minutes a day and get a lot done. And it's not posting content. It's actually being strategic in who I'm listening to and who I'm engaging with. And that's the stuff behind the scenes. Do you think that would be interesting to talk about on a later episode?
Absolutely.
I dig marketing, so yes, please.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even marketing. It's just like, I don't know, call it strategically making friends. It's just like, these are the people that I want to geek out with. And these are like, what I did is I basically drew a Venn diagram and I'm like, there's 3 categories, right? Category number 1 is who I think this book could help, which is a really wide category. Like there's just too many people. So I have to narrow that down. Category 2 is like, what do I embody? Like who are really my types of people based off of how I'm living my life and who I embody? And category number 3 is the understanding that people don't change. And so if you understand that principle, it's like people who buy lots, people who hire coaches hire lots of coaches, and people who don't. Well, it's the same principle. People who share lots, and people who don't. And so the third category is, well, actually, who are the types of people that really like to talk very openly about the types of things that they like? Because if my goal is to generate word of mouth for the book, it's way easier for me to find people who already talk about the type of stuff they like and get them to talk about my thing than it is to try to convince somebody who doesn't naturally talk about what they talk about online or build platforms around it or whatever, try to get them to talk about it. It's like, so, what are my 4 categories that I went after? And I think I kind of had like 3 to 5 in my mind, but I ended up on 4. One is personal training, obviously. Another is CrossFit. Like, you want people who can't shut up about the thing they like. Yo, CrossFit, right?
Yeah.
Number 3 is basically like digital nomad / minimalist, like that community. And that's just, I'm in Nicaragua talking to you about this. Like, that's been my life. So, and then number 4 are basically, call them like indie writers. So self-published authors, independent writers. Those are my 4 categories. And so those are the networks that I'm going deep because they all sit in the center of that Venn diagram of people who I just legitimately want to geek out with. Anyway, we'll get into that more in a later episode, I guess, of how I'm kind of tackling that on any given day. Let's talk about the French philosopher Jean de la Bruyère. Told you I'm going to butcher these French names. Bruyère, I don't know. It's got like an accent aigu on the top of the E, whatever that accent is. Accent. I don't remember what those accents are. Anyway, what he said is that he was a French philosopher. He said, the shortest and best way of making your fortune is to let people clearly see that it is in their interest to promote yours. So, I live in a pocket of Toronto called Etobicoke. It's recommendations, not flyers, that help me discover everything from coffee shops, massage therapists, chiropractors, even admittedly from my one excessively spiritual friend, upstairs strip mall fortune tellers. So if I was starting a new business in the area of Etobicoke, I'd launch the Best of Etobicoke podcast. Okay? Being a podcaster and using a podcast to become the obvious choice are two different games you get to choose from. We think of podcasts as ways to broadcast ourselves to the world, but they're actually much better at making us famous to the family. 9.9 times out of 10, you'd get ignored or blocked by a secretary if you were to call the CEO of the biggest businesses in your community, inquiring about hosting lunch and learns or seeing if they were interested in learning more about your thing. Now, you'd reverse these odds if you called that same person and asked if they were interested in appearing on your podcast, which is called The Best of Etobicoke, which of course shares the stories and the wisdom from the leaders in your community. In his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie wrote that the deepest urge in human nature is the desire to be important. The secret to getting what you want in life is to give others what they want, and everyone wants improved status. There's a proverb that says, talk to a man about himself, he will listen for hours. I love talking about me. You love talking about you. The CEO you're interviewing loves talking about herself. Many successful business leaders crave recognition for their accomplishments, and you can provide that. Now, once done, of course, they'll know you, they'll like you, and they'll trust you. After the episode, if they have any desire for your product or service, they might become a customer and refer others. But after each interview, ask your guest for an introduction to 2 others for your show. Simply by virtue of you having a podcast, successful people in your community are going to be making introductions for you. You won't, however, have a lot of listeners. And it is going to play on your freaking mind. Your show is never going to hit the best of podcast charts. You'll never be able to brag about how many downloads you have. What you will have done, though, is hacked your way into a stellar network of wealthy and well-connected people who want to see you succeed. As a bonus, you're not going to have had to dance like a monkey on the internet to have done it. Here's 2 real-world examples of people that have done this. The first is Greg Finch. He's a mental and physical performance coach for surfers. He uses the Surf Strong podcast to be famous to the international surf family. Greg's human optimized marketing system, Ren, is this. Number 1, what key benefit does his product or service provide? Is mental and physical performance improvements, right? Who are his customers? Wealthy service or wealthy surfers. What do they want? Better mental performance at work, better strength and stamina while surfing. Where is he going to find them? He's going to find them at expensive surf resorts, at charitable surf foundations, at tech companies that service the surf industry, stuff like that. How can he talk to them today? By starting a podcast as a networking tool. Without recording a single episode, simply because he called it a podcast and had an image he mocked up on Canva. Greg booked his first 8 interviews. His initial guests included the medical director for the World Surf League, the community outreach director for the Maui Ola Foundation, which is a charity promoting surfing as an alternative therapy for genetic disorders, an executive coach who loves surfing, and a physiotherapist that treats surfers on the island of Kauai in Hawaii. Anytime somebody he's interviewed for his show encounters a person who wants either mindset or physical training, Greg now gets referred. He's quietly adding 1 to 2 premium clients each week, paying $1,500 each. Every single time it feels random, but it's not, of course. Here's another example. Billy Hoffackers. I'm going to butcher these names, man. I'm so sorry, Billy. We talked about this. You fact-checked this for me. I got to learn how to pronounce these names. Shit. Billy is a financial consultant for fitness professionals. He uses the Your Fitness Money Coach podcast to become famous to the personal trainer and gym owner family. In the past week, he published 2 episodes, spoke at his industry's biggest online industry event with a talk titled Get Rid of Money Stress for Good, and did a live interview in one of the most popular Facebook groups in the industry. Here's Billy's human optimized marketing system. Gwen?
Humana.
God, I hate that acronym. Number 1, what key benefit does he provide? Financial coaching and education. Who are his customers? Personal trainers, gym owners in the United States. What do they want? More money, more control over their money. Where is he going to find them? Industry events and communities. How can he talk to them today? By interviewing the people who run the events and the communities. A podcast about money specific for personal trainers can't have more than 50 to 100 listeners per episode, which is a good thing. It's true that doing unscalable things cuts you off from potential opportunities. Now, you can view that as a bad thing, or you can seek it out as a useful constraint to add precision and focus. There's no wasted effort, there's no comparison, and there's no praying to the social media gods and no burnout. The more exclusionary we are, the more inclusionary we become. People believe something that only does one thing is better at that thing than something that does that thing and something else, says Rory Sutherland. Billy's decision to focus on a tiny market cut himself off from approximately 99.7% of possible clients, but it made him the obvious choice for the remaining 0.3%. By not trying to become famous on the internet, he's become famous to the family. Now, all you need is a name for your podcast to reach out and ask for an interview. Decide right now. It doesn't matter. Call it the best of whatever. You can change it later. This podcast was called The Goodman Show because we had no idea what the hell to call it. And we literally figured out the name, the obvious choice, on an episode of this podcast. I don't remember how long ago that was, but it was a while ago. And then I got a book deal based upon that name. You can figure it out later. Stop productively procrastinating by stressing over the right microphone or podcast image or whatever other nice-sounding excuse for not taking action is going through your mind right now. Remember, monkey first. Book your first interview today. Once booked, you'll figure out the other stuff quick because you'll have to. Now, don't depend on anybody else ever for promotion. It is your responsibility. So, while we're playing with this idea, who let the dogs out? Let's growth hack this thing. Let's growth hack the best of Etobicoke. I had a client one day who went golfing with the guys who sang Who Let the Dogs Out. What were their names? Do you remember? Anyway, he went golfing with them. He went on vacation to Bermuda to some fancy place. And I guess him and his buddy, like, you know, when you go golfing, they make a foursome, so you often get matched up. So him and his buddy got matched up with 2 guys. And it was 2 of the guys from whatever the group is that sang Who Let the Dogs Out.
Like
and he's like,
Baja Boys or something.
The Baja Boys or something like that. So he comes back. My client's name is Bruce. Bruce he's telling me this story. He's like, these motherfuckers made one song one time and just chill. All they do is just chill in Bermuda and just get money.
Life complete.
They just smoke weed and play golf.
Like, bro, we're done. We're finished.
Well, you think about how many like baseball stadiums and whatever plays that song. Like, they get paid every single time that happens. They must get so many royalties, man. So the best of Etobicoke would feature 2 types of interviews. Here's how I'm going to growth hack this. It would feature 2 types of interviews. The first would feature the business leaders. The others would tell the stories of all the other little local establishments that make my community so wonderful. Because I love my home. And yet I feel no connection to the people who serve my community. And I can't help that I'm alone. For example, I write in a simultaneously misplaced and perfectly placed Turkish coffee shop. It's called the Galata Cafe. It's owned by somebody whose name is Kaglar Erez. I've got French names. I've got Turkish names in this podcast, butchering all of them, I'm telling you. I'm actually kind of scared for the audiobook because I'm going to have to get these right. Anyway, Kaglar's an immigrant that wanted to bring his country's culture to Canada. I want to know his story. How did he end up there? Why did he build such a wonderful cafe? I'd literally title his episode, How the heck did such a wonderful Turkish cafe end up in Etobicoke? And then in brackets, of all places. Once it's live, I'd print hundreds of cards with Kaglo's face in the title of the episode. The cards would have a QR code that leads people to a page on my website with links to listen to the episode. This would be the same website for my company, and each podcast episode code would also include my company name. So it would say presented by whatever. I'd drop off these cards at the Galata Cafe, and I'd say to Kagler, hearing your story made this cafe even more special to me. It makes me want to come back and tell others. And I think it would do the same for others who listen. So I made these cards to make it easy for you to recommend your patrons to listen to the interview. Can I leave them with you to have your staff hand one out to everybody who orders? Picture this. It's Sunday morning. You're going for a stroll with your family. On your right, in a dingy strip mall, you notice a sign that says Galata Turkish Cafe. So you look at your wife, you point, she shrugs her shoulders. Whatever. Once inside, though, you're transported to Turkey. It doesn't look like it doesn't look or smell like a ratty strip mall in Etobicoke anymore. You decide what you want, you laugh at yourself trying to say the names of the Turkish menu items, you grab your little flag with your order number and you sit down. Okay, the food comes. It's fresh, it's flavorful. Then Kaglo walks out with Turkish coffee in a tiny cup sitting at the bottom of a gilded bird cage. Beside the cup is a single square of Turkish delight. You and your wife have stumbled upon something special. You've transported to another place, a place where details matter and every sip and bite is more delicious than the last. Then you look out the window and remember that you're in a dingy strip mall in Etobicoke and you think, how the heck did this place end up here? And as if he could read your mind, Kaglo's staff brings you a check with the card stapled to it with the podcast episode. I'd scan the QR code to download and listen to the episode. Because of my personal connection to the space and the proximity to my home, it would bypass everything else I wanted to listen to or read. Distributing my cards would be free for Kaglo. It would only cost me a few dollars to print. We'd both benefit. The best way to get yours is to help others get theirs. So every few weeks, I'd pop by with more cards. I'd say hi. I'd eat a mouth-watering sukaloo sandwich, which is grilled cheese with Turkish sausage, which is amazing. Never forget that when you enter a small business, you're entering a manifestation of the owner's dream. It's special. So are they. They deserve to have their story told. Small business ownership is really hard, but community businesses aren't zero-sum games. Together we rise, together we win. Build once, market twice. Marketing is about leverage, positive-sum games, and transference of trust. I'd repeat this process with the top coffee shops, restaurants, physiotherapists, and of course, purveyors of fine foreign cheeses in my community.
Obviously.
Why does every community have a fancy cheese shop? Can we talk about this for a second?
Money and cheese are a track, John. Like
are the margins that good on fancy cheeses?
It's got to be horrible margins. I've always thought.
But they must be good because every community has a goddamn fancy cheese shop.
I hate food service categorically because of just the shit show that it is across the board. But
I don't know.
Who knows? They don't call it cheddar for nothing.
I get it.
Yeah, you see what I did? Cheese and the money. You get it?
So anyway,
Thanks.
If each of these shops has 50 to 100 customers a day, within weeks, my business would be promoted thousands of times a day through local recommendations, ongoing and for free. Within 4 to 6 months, I'd be friends with the most important people who live close and have the majority of businesses sharing my business. The world at large wouldn't know about me, but I'd be famous to my local community. After typing this out, I remember how I felt because I was like, I want to publish this, man. It's so cool. Part of me wants to keep it to myself. I was thinking, I was like, man, I love this almost as much as I like those Turkish sausage sandwiches. Like almost. But I like the Turkish sandwiches more.
what's it called? A scoopaloo sandwich.
Sukaloo. Yeah, it's like a grilled cheese, like Turkish sausage. It's just delicious. It's just so flavorful. It's basically like a grilled cheese sandwich with that.
I would try it. I'm not very adventurous, but I would try it.
It's my this cafe is kind of my go-to for anybody who comes and meets me. We usually go there and have coffee or have a little meal. More so because it's just an excuse for me to eat a sandwich. It's one of those things where it's like doesn't matter how full you are, you could always knock down one of them. Okay. Moving on. That was supposed to be like a cow.
That's close.
There's a cafe owner in one of our buildings that built her entire business by taking 4 cups of coffee to each of the neighboring businesses every day. This is something that Chris Cooper said. He's the owner of Two Brain Business Consultant. Why doesn't every cafe do that? And you don't need to own a cafe to bring people coffee every day. Cooper says every local business owner should just buy 4 coffees every morning and bring them to a neighboring shop. Dr. Robert Cialdini's first principle persuasion in his book Influence states that human beings are wired to return favors. Reciprocity compels us to give back more value than we received in the first place. What stops people from doing this is not buying the coffee. It costs $10. What stops them is the worry about what to say next. The goal, Cooper says, is to take them coffee, not to sell them anything. I love that. There's a clarity and simplicity and obviousness. Becoming famous to the family is literally as simple as talking to people. What are the best shops to go into? I don't know. What's the max radius around your place to network in? I'm not sure. How often should you go back to the same shop? I don't know that either. This isn't an exact science. In business, the best strategies never are, and that's why most people don't do them. Maybe turn it into a ritual. Choose 4 businesses for every day of the week. Every Monday, show up to 4, Tuesday, a different 4, and so on. Begin with the places closest to you and work your way outwards, or do it a different way. I don't know. 4 coffees can be literal or metaphorical. It means a gift, something easy, something cost-effective, repeatable, and meaningful, given to a member of the family you want to become famous to. Luca Hocevar generates hundreds of leads every month with a Saturday morning charity fitness boot camp. The entire community is involved. Local businesses both donate and participate. He built his network by walking into neighboring stores, asking for the owner by name and saying, "Hey, I'm Luca. I own that gym down the street. Yo, I want us to all win together. If you have a few minutes, that's a fucking typo. I'd love to talk to you about a few things that are working well for us building our business." I've already sent this to the editor too. There's a few mistakes. It's embarrassing. Are you not sure what to say? Give them a gift of a book that helped you. Maybe it'll be the Obvious Choice book when that comes out. Buy a few dozen copies and tag some pages with Post-it notes and then share with them a useful insight from it. I wrote the section I'm about to read you at 4:45 a.m. on January 9th, 2024. Most of the Obvious Choice book was written before sunrise. During the day, I run 2 businesses, I work out, and I try to be the best dad to my 2 young boys. This book's release date is a year away. That means that I have a year to market it, but I'm busy. Not only that, I'm living right now in San Juan del Sur, Nicaragua for the winter. Giving physical gifts is not an option. So, on a Google Doc I wrote, take the next year to systematically expand my network in 3 to 4 key markets. We already spoke about the way that I kind of dialed down those markets, right? Who can my book help? The answer is a lot. Second, what do I know and embody? Well, I'm an author with a background in fitness who packs his stuff into a backpack, and I live abroad 3 to 5 months a year. Third, what people already share publicly. And like I said, right, people who share lots, and people who don't. If the goal is to generate word of mouth, targeting communities that already talk about what they love makes sense. So the 4 markets, right? Writer, indie author, personal training, CrossFit, minimalist, digital nomad. Next up, my 4 coffee plan, which I call catch people in the act of doing something good and become their biggest fan, has 2 principles, which are number 1, default to generosity, and number 2, never resist a kind impulse. I don't have much spare time. Fortunately, consistency trumps intensity. Small actions chosen strategically and executed systematically add up. Motivational speaker Jen Gottlieb once shared that she does all of her networking in 15 minutes a day. She said, I go into my Instagram and I have a spreadsheet of people that I want to build relationships with. I engage with their content so they start seeing me every day. Then when I meet them, I've already provided the value and they're like, oh man, how can I help you? Thank you so much for commenting and buying my book and sharing about it. So the first thing that I did is I built a list of 50 to 100 people in each market, with the top priority being podcasters who host interview shows. I subscribe to all their email newsletters and social media platforms. Every day I choose 10 to 15 people from the list and I open recent content that they've produced. I do some combination of commenting, replying, and sharing. If they're coming out with a product or service, I'll buy it and publicly share when I do. If they announce an upcoming project like their own book launch, I'll save the date and set a reminder to order and review it right away. People don't need to live physically close to you. What's important is that you choose your family and that you support them. As the relationship with these folks progresses, I'll offer to jump on the phone and share what I know. For the next year, this is how I'm marketing my book. It's going to take me no more than 30 minutes a day. 4 coffees. So this is where I admit that HOMS is a terrible acronym.
But it's memorable, though, because it's bad.
If nobody's around you right now, say it out loud. It sounds like we're in a meditation circle where some dude from California wearing a big feather necklace is chanting while playing a Himalayan sound bowl.
There's definitely some ayahuasca involved here.
He's probably polyamorous.
Oh man, those feathers are.
He's
fake.
definitely vegan, and he just started doing jiu-jitsu.
Clearly.
Every single year, he resets himself by going to Burning Man.
Vegan grappling tonight at Burning Man, 7 p.m.
Vegan polyamorous huggers at Burning Man.
Oh, this is so perfect. Oh,
but the acronym's weird because it's got the word human in it. And making an acronym with an H is surprisingly difficult. But you sell stuff to humans, and marketing these days feels so inhuman. And I don't think it should be this way. So I hope that after listening to all of this, you feel empowered knowing that it doesn't have to be. I got to turn my commas into periods. I'm done.
Hums.
I said that to my agent. We were on the phone the other day, and I was talking. I was like, "Oh shit, I'm speaking in commas again," and she just laughed so hard. She's like, "I know exactly what you mean right now."
So funny. So funny.
Oh man. All right. I'm just gonna recommend another episode, and then we can get out of here. That sound good, you guys?
Yep.
I think that's the pod. All right. Episode 133, if you're looking for something else to listen to, that it's called Beware of Reckless Ambition. I love this concept. I think this concept's very important. I think the type of people who listen to a podcast like this, hello, Tim, hello, James, hello, Rebecca, I'm speaking to you. I think that the type of people who listen to a podcast like this are very ambitious people. I don't think that you would be listening to this if you weren't, but there are two types of ambition. There's true ambition that is strategic, that is proactive. And then there's reckless ambition, which is very reactive, and it's often praised. Being ambitious is often praised, but it can get us into a lot of trouble if left unchecked. And so episode 133, I think, will help you kind of check your ambition, figure out which direction to focus it. And it's one of my favorite concepts that we've spoken about recently. I think it's a really, really important one. So have a listen. Episode 133, Beware of Reckless Ambition. As always, thank you for listening. And podcast out.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.